Welcome back, folks. I'm Yvonne Davis, author, astrologer, and life transformation coach. And this is my channel where I do general astrology and political astrology. So if you're new to my channel, please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, click like on this video, share with friends and family and on social media, and leave your comments below. So I have a little bit of business to touch on before we get started. So let me go ahead and pull that up so I can show that to you. Okay, so first thing is the astrology workshop officially starts tomorrow. So if you're interested, I would recommend that you go and click on the link. This is the video, the most recent video I did, which I'm going to talk about a little bit before we start on the next charts I want to show you. But somebody asked me about the links. They said, where are the links? And another person said, I can't find the link to the workshop. Where are the links that you mentioned? So I've put them in two places, okay? You can either find them up here. See how that is? They're right under the video here. And so all you have to do is you just, go to the description box underneath the video. They're all there. And including these down here if you want to become a patron, if you want to get enrolled in the workshop. I also have my financial freedom workshop, or if you want a personal reading. And I'm putting in links for Zeitgeist and Zeitgeist Addendum. Oh, I need to show you guys the Venus project too, because some people freaked out. I need to talk about the consciousness expansion too, but let me get through this really quick. So here's the links, okay? They're in the description box or they are pinned above. I may have forgotten to pin, so let's do that right now. Okay, now they're now pinned to the top. So any of the links that I mentioned, they're either in the description box or the pin. Also, I was receiving emails with links and people saying that they couldn't figure out how to leave a comment, because I was saying, rather than send the information to me in my email, because it's easier for me to control my workload if my email is for people who are getting readings, or their students or their patrons. And this is a better place to leave that kind of information and links, because then you can share it with other people, okay? So that's how you do it. See, when you come down from the video, and the second thing is the description box, and below that is where you add a public comment, and you just click in there, and then you type in your comment, and then when it's done, it'll give you the option. So like, say you put in some words, and then you click comment and it'll post, okay? So that's how you leave a comment. And so I appreciate all of your comments, and leaving the links in the comments, because I do come back and read the comments. So it's the way that I organize and prioritize my work. So it's easier for me to come here and read comments and see what you guys have said and what links you've left here, and also share them with everybody else. So one of the things I want to say about this video, the last video they made, Dissent is Now Illegal, is this article that says, for autocrats and others, coronavirus is a chance to grab even more power, okay? So let's see, who is this? Oh, the New York Times, okay. So again, that's for autocrats and others, coronavirus is a chance to grab even more power. Leaders around the world have passed emergency decrees and legislation expanding their reach during the pandemic. Will they ever relinquish them? So, if you're just looking to, if you're coming to my channel because you just want me to sing you a lullaby, my next video is going to be good news. It's actually going to be titled Good News for a Change. But we also have to face reality, because if we are too afraid to look at what's actually there, we will continue down the path of fear and slavery, okay? In fact, it's going to get worse. This is our opportunity. We are at a crossroads. And so So I just wanted to make that clear. Like, I'm not just making this stuff up. This is the New York Times saying for autocrats and others, coronavirus is a chance to grab even more power. I'll include this link in this video, okay? Along with all the other links in under this video. So I wanted to go back and just refresh your memory about what I'm including. Zeitgeist, Zeitgeist Addendum, and the Venus Project, okay? Because the Venus Project is connected with these Zeitgeist videos, and the Zeitgeist videos are talking about the monetary system and how it enslaves us, okay? That's why you need to understand the monetary system so that you understand how it is enslaving us. And then also Thrive. Thrive talks about the monetary system, and then it goes into understanding energy. And then my video, Valuing Your Life Energy, which is super, super important. I wish that more people had viewed it. I don't think it's even reached 600 views. You know, it's like I can get like 37,000 views on Trump and his hush money payments to porn stars. But when it comes to the stuff that's really important, understanding what currency actually is and valuing your life energy so that you won't be enslaved, that is way more important, you know, and less than 600 people have even viewed it. And I'm really asking you guys, please, you know, come and look at this stuff. I've also included Michael Moore's Capitalism Love Story, and then some other articles like how coronavirus quarantines lead to a drop in pollution, because it has turned out that, you know, it was an article that I read that showed that 4.2 million people around the globe die every year from bad air, from air pollution. And so we're saving lives with what's happening right now. So this is super important. I also found an article that said that obesity is also one of the, it creates a weakness in the system. So the people who are most vulnerable are the elderly, those who have underlying health conditions, those who are smokers, those who live in cities with polluted air, and people who are obese. So, you know, it's interesting because it's pointing to addictions. I mean, obviously you can't help it if you're a certain age or if you're, you know, have underlying health conditions that are not caused by lifestyle choices. But those lifestyle choices that are impacted more intensely by coronavirus are smoking and air pollution. That's our addiction to capitalism, and you know, our just constant need to consume and consume and consume. They're still calling us consumers. It just disgusts me. I'm not a consumer. I'm not a parasite. I'm a human being. It's disgusting the way they call us consumers. Just turns my stomach. So anyway, you can see me getting angry again. So anyway, yeah, our consumption, this is a craving, it's an addiction to constantly consume. And finally, obesity, which is to some degree, it's an addiction to food, mostly to poisonous food like sugar and high fructose corn syrup and things like that, you know, white flour, all this stuff that doesn't exist in nature, because high fructose corn syrup doesn't exist in nature. Our bodies don't know how to process it, and yet so much of our food has high fructose corn syrup in it, and that's what makes us obese, and that's what creates diabetes. And unfortunately, this is actually making people more vulnerable to the coronavirus. So it's pointing to our addictions. I think that's really interesting. So, okay, let's go here. And the other ones I have here, I wanted you to look at a couple of people. I unfortunately didn't get it all in, but I'll have all these links in for under this video that you're watching right now. But I also wanted you to look at something else, because I guess I'll go to the charts right now, because I have to explain This video is titled, oh, what did I title it? Oh, yeah, Trump's base turns against him. And so I want to show you the chart real quick, okay? Now, I have shown you this chart many, many times. I did multiple videos where I told you that as soon as Saturn goes into his 7th house of others, that he would lose support. And you can go back and look at those videos if I can find them, because it takes me more time to have to go back and look at videos and put the links above. But if I have time to do that, I will. But really, all you have to do is just go back. There's a huge library of videos, and look for it. And I'm sure you'll find it, because I actually did multiple videos about that. I kept saying it over and over and over again. As soon as Saturn moves into Aquarius, he's going to lose his base. I didn't say that specifically. I said he is going to lose support. Okay. But that is actually what's happening. And Mars into his 7th house, Mars can bring conflict. So he's losing support, and there's more conflict that he has to deal with. And the other thing is that it's squaring Uranus up here, and this is the revolution, okay? We're already in the midst of it. We're already in the midst of the revolution. We're already in the midst of the dawning of the age of Aquarius, with Saturn and Mars moving into Aquarius and squaring Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius, okay? So this is it. We have already crossed the threshold into the revolution and into the dawning of the age of Aquarius. So these are very, very, very exciting times. And so let me go back and show you the proof of that, okay? It's not just me being wishful thinking. No, this is real. This is absolutely real. So let me show you. Okay, so that's why I want you to go and look at this guy's video, Christopher Green from AMTV. I don't agree with everything he says, but he has a really interesting viewpoint to consider. And he has been saying the same things that I'm saying. He's very, very, very concerned about this, about autocrats and others, and coronavirus is a chance to grab even more power. And I think I heard him actually say in one of his videos that Trump is a shill. That's what he called him a shill. And this is a libertarian. This is a Trump supporter, and he is turning away because he can see what's happening. And so Trump is losing his support from his base. That's why you got to go watch this guy. You know, don't freak out just because you don't agree with everything he says. Listen to what he says and see where you agree. And this is going to go back to this idea that I've been talking about with the, there was another question I needed to answer. So let me pause this a moment. I know it's kind of like jumps around and stuff, but the problem is that all of this stuff is connected. It's a web, and it's not linear, you know? So, and that's part of evolving your consciousness, is to be able to get out of black and white linear thinking. Black, white, left, right, wrong. It's a polarity. It's a way of thinking that puts things into polarity instead of understanding that everything is a whole. Everything is holistic, holographic, connected in a web. So my mind goes everywhere in the web because I am existing at the tier 2 level of consciousness, which is an integrated consciousness. I don't think in black and white anymore. I don't think in polarities anymore. You know, it's okay. Let me put this on hold, because I gotta show you that so that you'll understand why it's so important, not just because Trump is losing his base, but because this is how we're going to evolve our consciousness, and this is how we're going to help the revolution take us down the timeline toward love and prosperity and abundance and cooperation and freedom and, you know, just humanity expanding its consciousness and reaching self-actualization, and just amazing things that can happen if we are able to expand our consciousness and take the species down the timeline toward freedom and love and consciousness and Christ consciousness too. Remember, Christ consciousness resides in the heart chakra. Christ consciousness is unconditional love, and that's the direction we want to go in. So I'm going to pause this, and I'm going to bring up the spiral dynamics map of consciousness, human consciousness evolution. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So let me go bring up the spiral dynamics map of human consciousness again. And as I said before, these first levels are called tier 1. And the reason they're called tier 1 is because as a person evolves, and every human being evolves, we start with survival, and then we understand this kind of mystical reality where our parents are like gods, and then red is where we say no, no, and we assert our individuality. And then blue is when we go to school and we understand there are rules and we have to agree to the rules and obey the rules. And then orange is where we become enterprising. Usually this is the level of becoming an adult, and this is the time when you also get to assert your individuality as an adult, and you're able to move out of the home and find your own work and support yourself. And then green is when you understand that we're all connected, and your sense of self, your ego, in a sense, it transcends and expands to include other people and the environment, and your heart opens up. The heart chakra is green. Again, I want to use the language of Christ consciousness and unconditional love so that we understand it's just the language. What matters is the energy of green, the energy of the heart chakra, the energy of Christ consciousness and unconditional love. So this is called the first tier because what happens in the first tier is as you move up, not just as an individual, but also as a collective, because all these levels exist all over the planet. There are people living at survival. There are people living in purple where they, a lot of people, I've had people actually come to my channel and call me a witch and a minion of Satan. And I once tried to show in the Bible, it actually says, the three magicians, that's the word for magician, magi, they followed the star. They saw the signs in the heavens, in the stars, that guided them to the baby Jesus. That's the story. The three magi followed the stars in the sky. That was the guide, the message that led them to Christ. And I pointed that out. And that person absolutely went off the deep end and, was like all caps and just like really, really just trying to rip into me. And when I saw that, I realized that this person actually lives in a reality of where witches and demons and Satan actually exist. And there's no logic that can get him out of that reality. So it doesn't do any good to use logic. It doesn't work at the level of purple. And there are nations living at the level of red, Syria right now. I don't know if they're still at war because of the virus. I heard that some places where people were at war, that they had an armistice because of the virus. I don't know if that's true because I don't have time to research every single story. It's just my workload is unbelievable right now. But if you guys have seen stories that say, yes, this is happening, or no, that's not happening, please leave links below from high quality sources. And then blue is the totalitarian level that tries to, and it's a moralistic level. It tries to tell everybody what they have to do. This is this combination of blue and red, because they blend. It's not a hard line between them. They sort of blend. So the red and blue, that's China, okay? They're red, they're militaristic, but they're also blue, which is everybody has to follow the rules. It's absolutely totalitarian. Everyone has to behave in the exact same way. Nobody can have individuality. I know that's not completely 100% true, but that seems to be what they strive for. I had a friend who told me he read an article that said that when there was some kind of national or natural disaster in China, and all the neighbors came out and tried to help everybody and create community and, you know, just act from their hearts, from love. It's the natural impulse of human beings to do that. And the government came in and made them stop because it was not government sanctioned. I mean, that is like, that is a level of totalitarianism that is unbelievable. And, you know, Nazi Germany was also a horrific level of blue and red. We don't want to go there. That's why, you know, I'm trying to point out that this problem of a power grab and making dissent illegal is extremely dangerous. That is the path toward the timeline that goes toward not just reinstating what we've existed in the past before this pandemic, but making it even worse, even more fear, even more totalitarianism, even more authoritarianism, even more power grabs, even more slavery, you know, even more separation of the haves and have-nots. We don't want to go down that path. I assure you we don't. I'm sure you can, you know, understand why. We have to take this very seriously. Orange is the level of science and technology and enterprise, which is good. We all need that. That's how we're going to solve our problems. We need technology, we need enterprise, we need science, but we also, we need it to be tempered, you know. And orange, when it becomes toxic, like Donald Trump, it ravages the environment and it ravages other people. You know, I mean, I don't have any problem using the word rape. It's a form of rape. But green takes us up to where we start to care about others, and we start to care about the environment. The problem is that we're in this judgmental, we're still in tier 1, which is judgmental, judging all those beneath instead of integrating them all and moving up to tier 2, which is the integral level. So someone asked me, how do you know when you're in tier 2? You know, how do you know when you have crossed that line and you've evolved your consciousness up to the integral level? So I am going to, I made a document that, and I included as many things as I could think of, but you know, there will probably be more as I continue to build this, and I will probably share it again in the future, because I get new subscribers and you know, they haven't been exposed to this, and it's super important. Plus we can always use a refresher. So I'm sure I'll come back to this again in the future. But the question was, how do you know when you have evolved your consciousness to the tier 2 integral level of consciousness on the spiral dynamics map of human consciousness evolution? Well, here's the answer. You have an internal locus of control versus an external locus of control. And when that happens, you are able to take personal responsibility rather than blaming externals and pointing fingers. It doesn't mean you can't observe what's happening out there. We are observing what's happening out there. But we are also recognizing that it's pointless to just sit around wasting energy complaining about the way things should be. Oh, it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be this way. That doesn't do any good. It's a waste of energy. But instead, you just take personal responsibility and you just get busy creating something new. And you can go back again and look at the videos that I did when I was talking about what is personal responsibility. Again, if I can find it, I'll put it above. If someone else happens to go back into the library and find it, and you're willing to come back to this video or any of my videos and post a link in the comments, I would totally, hugely appreciate that. All right, and then the other thing is, when you've evolved your consciousness to tier 2 integral level of consciousness, when you let go of when you have value judgments, which are an internal locus of control, versus moral judgments, which are an external locus of control. So the difference between a value judgment and a moral judgment is a value judgment is about what you value. Like, I value love. I value consciousness expansion. I value freedom. I value cooperation. I value consciousness expansion. I value, what else? Sharing, being fair, fairness. I value self-actualization. I value creating a world where people have the opportunity for self-actualization. And so those are my values. That's something that's internal to me, and I own that. Okay, that's my values. Okay, versus moral judgments, which is an external locus of control, which is a shoulding. You know. All right, so the other thing is you become less judgmental and more observational. So the moral judgments are judgment of other people, judgment of the environment, instead of value judgment, which says, I value love, I value fairness, I value freedom, I value honesty. That's the internal locus of control. It's an acknowledgement of this. This is something that actually belongs to me. It's born out of me. It blossoms out of me. I own it. I don't try to should it on other people. Okay. The moral judgment is the shoulding on other people. So by evolving your conscious up to tier 2 integral level of consciousness, you become less judgmental. You stop shoulding on people, and you become more observational, less judgmental and more observational. You own your feelings, perceptions, and personal reality. You own your reality. You own your personal responsibility. You stop blaming externals and pointing fingers, and you just get to work. You know, just change things. It doesn't mean that there isn't a, you know, some objective reality like the way our monetary system and economy is structured. That's an objective reality, and we can have feelings about it. We can have our own personal value judgments about it, and we can want to change things. We don't need to should on people. We just go out and start creating the new timeline through love, through the energy of love, okay? Not through the energy of fear and hatred, but through the energy of love and cooperation and kindness and connection, connecting to our fellow men, connecting to, and women, connecting to, and all other genders, and connecting to the environment, you know, connecting to the cosmos. That's the energy of the heart and love and Christ consciousness and unconditional love and joy and peace and wholeness and oneness, you know, and that's the timeline I'm trying to help us all create, okay, to see the difference and evolve our consciousness and move in that direction. So when you're evolving up to tier 2 integral level of consciousness, your internal locus of control allows you to behave ethically, okay? You no longer need an external locus of control, which are the police, the government, the authorities, the church, etc., to make you do what's ethical. You do what's ethical because you see that it is energetically clear of negative karma, meaning it is clear of negative consequences for yourself and others. That's an internal locus of control, and that's ethics. Ethics is different than morality. Morality is an external locus of control that's forced on us instead of letting us internalize that authority. We internalize the authority by taking responsibility and behaving ethically, okay? So when you're evolving to the tier 2 integral level of consciousness, your mind, your consciousness expands to hold more of reality because you're less judgmental. You're able to expand your mind and hold more of reality in your mind. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It's just you're able to just hold that reality because it's like your mind expands as a vessel to hold more of reality gently and spaciously and free of judgment. Doesn't mean you agree with everything. No, it's just you're able to just expand. It's like you kind of like open your arms wide, your heart wide, your mind wide, your consciousness wide, everything just opening up to include more and more and more, just holding it spaciously without judgment. That's a very incredibly loving thing to do, as opposed to the shoulding, which is incredibly violent. Shoulding is incredibly violent. Judgment is incredibly violent toward other people because it cuts them off. It says, you're no good. Get out of here. We don't want you anymore. That's so violent. I'm suggesting that we create a timeline, and we have the choice. That we're at the crossroads right now. We have the choice to create the timeline of love and hatred and moralistic judgments and shoulding on people. Or we have the opportunity to move down and create the timeline of love and cooperation and opening our hearts and opening our consciousness and releasing judgment and filling our hearts with compassion and unconditional love and Christ consciousness, and moving toward consciousness expansion, moving toward peace, moving toward love, cooperation, oneness, like self-actualization, all those things that we say we know we want. Okay, so this is the way you get there. So you also become more present with your experience. When you're less judgmental and you're not cutting off and pushing everything away, ugh, I don't want that, get that away from me, then you can't like see it. You can't be present to it if you're not open. So part of having this expanded consciousness is being present with your experience and less lost in the story or the narrative. The narrative often is a story of moralistic judgments and shoulding. It should be this way. You should be that way. And that's the story. And that's what our reality in our culture has moved into a narrative of polarity. And what it's done is it's separated us instead of moving us toward wholeness, oneness, connection, and love. It's ripping us apart. It's incredibly violent. And I am trying to heal that violence so that we don't continue to go down that path of violence and hatred and fear and loathing and separation and slavery, because the fact is that if we choose that path, it won't just be going back to the way it was before. It will be going back to something way, way, way worse. And we have that choice. The universe gives us free will. It's put us in school. We're here to learn from the karmic curriculum. And it gives us free will to choose we're at the crossroads. Which timeline do we want to create? The one of fear and hatred and polarity and shoulding and moralistic judgments, and it's so violent, ripping us apart? Or do we want to create the other timeline of love and wholeness and sharing and compassion and Christ consciousness, expanded consciousness, sharing, connecting, I know I keep repeating myself, but that's because like when I read the comments and people don't get it, I think, okay, maybe it's because like they just need to hear it. Because you have to actually form new neural networks. That's part of the issue. You can't, even if you just hear it one time, that's not enough to create a neural network, because your neural networks, and if you're interested in this, you can study Joe Dispenza's work. He's brilliant. And he gives you a very clear understanding of the neural networks and how you have to repeat something like compassion. Compassion is, forms in our neural networks and in our energetic body. The neural network is simply a physical manifestation of the energetic shift. But it does take time for the neural networks to actually form. So you have to, it's called Hebb's Law. You have to pull yourself away from the continual habitual behavior of moral judgments and shoulding and hating and fear and all that stuff. You have to pull yourself away from that. That's why meditation is so helpful to this. because it allows your neural networks to release from that continual reinforcement. Once you release that, you know, and the neural networks separate from that and they're no longer doing that, then the neural networks of hatred and judging and moralistic judging and shoulding and complaining and blaming and pointing fingers, that those neural networks actually dissolve. And then new neural networks of compassion and love and sharing and connection and all of these things, then those neural networks can create and grow in your brain and also in your energetic body. They both work synergistically. So that's why, you know, it may seem to some of you like I'm repeating myself, but that's because when I see comments of people who aren't getting it, I realize that they need to hear it more times so that their neural networks can grow, okay, to create this new reality that this new timeline that we're gonna go down. So, okay. So as you do that, your mind and consciousness expand to hold more of reality. You become more present with your experience and less lost in the story or narrative. And you feel comfortable navigating the unknown. As an example, you can remain calm and peaceful even though you may not know which reality is true, such as whether the virus is natural or man-made. You can accept not knowing and simply adjust fluidly to the new circumstances. So that's, I'm not going to take a position either way, because I've been getting tons of people saying, no, it's not man-made, it's from nature, you know, it's completely natural, which makes sense to me because, as I said before, part of the problem is that the human species keeps expanding into the environments of other species. And when we do that, we interact with those species and we interact with the viruses that they carry. And, you know, what's happened now with the pandemic is actually a natural consequence of expanding our species into the habitat of other species. It's, you know, spirit actually does not have, is not a place of moralistic judgment. It's just the natural consequences. And I do think, though, that we are being given an opportunity on a spiritual level to choose to work in harmony with our environment and other species, or to continue to rape the environment and slaughter other species and cause their extinction. So, all right, so let's see. You feel comfortable navigating the unknown. You don't need to know if this is natural or man-made. I've had other people who just keep, you know, flooding me with information saying, yes, this is man-made. It actually doesn't matter. You don't have to always know. You can exist and navigate in the unknown, and still, from the experience that you're having, you can grow and expand your consciousness and learn from that experience. So you don't actually have to know the origin of that experience in order to grow from the experience. So when you're evolving to Tier 2 integral consciousness, you remain centered and grounded in the face of uncertainty and the unknown. You no longer think in black and white, rather your consciousness can think in the whole spectrum of color. And you are able to integrate light and shadow to empower yourself. Where light and shadow meet, a rainbow is formed. You are able to expand your consciousness to hold an entire spectrum of color. That's why I really want you guys to go and watch that film, Thrive. The Zeitgeist movies are awesome. They will explain the monetary enslavement system, you know, just like that. An hour or two, you'll completely be able to understand it. And also it's associated with the Venus Project. And like I said, I'm going to actually expose you to what that is, because some people were freaking out because there was this tiny, you know, like maybe 3-second clip of Ron Paul saying something in an interview. I don't even remember what he was saying. Maybe, you know, if I go back and watch Zeitgeist, I'll see what he was saying. It wasn't anything outrageous. But just the simple fact that there was a libertarian in this film, they just went ballistic. Like, how dare you? Somebody even said, you are doing a serious disservice to your viewers by putting this film up there. It's like, that is the result of propaganda. to think that just because there is this 3-second clip of Ron Paul, a libertarian, saying something that wasn't even outrageous in this 2-hour film, that you're supposed to reject the entire film and all its information. And that's insanity. That is the effect of propaganda. That's what propaganda does to us. Like I said, you know, the reason why people don't take a lot of people don't take the crop circles seriously is because of the hoaxers. And so then what happens is that people find out, oh, there were some hoaxers. So that means what they do is they equate it in their mind and say, oh, that means all crop circles are hoaxes. And that's not true. Another thing I was trying to point out was that that just because a person is libertarian doesn't mean that they are in bed with the Rothschilds. You know, I don't know if they are or not. It's just like, just because we're socialists doesn't mean that we are in bed with the communist Chinese. You know, I mean, it's propaganda that makes you think that. In fact, this is so important. I'm actually going to shift over to what I was showing you with the spiral. This thing here. I'll go back to how you know you're in yellow integral consciousness in a second. But I was showing you this the other day about how the spectrum, the political spectrum is shaped more like this, like a circle, but it's actually more oval shaped. These are the centrists, and then you have the left on one side and the right on the other side. And yes, they're switched. I know I thought I had to create a mirror, but it actually doesn't matter because energetically they're the same. They're both about totalitarianism. And someone said to me, you know, oh no, that can't be true. The far left can't be totalitarian because Bernie is far left. And I said, no, Bernie is not far left. Bernie is left of center, okay? It's propaganda. It's Republican propaganda that tells you that Bernie is far left. Bernie is not far left. Bernie is left of center, okay? It's Republican propaganda that tells you he's far left because they want people to be afraid of him. Bernie is nothing to be afraid of. In fact, let me really quick take you to somewhere else. See, this is why I have to go through the web. You know, I can't explain this in a linear black and white fashion because that's not the way it works. So I'm going to take you back over here. As I said, I want you to listen to this guy. It will blow your mind. He is very much opposed to what the government is doing, including Trump. He's a Trumper, and he is turning his support against Trump because he sees that Trump is part of this thing of the autocrats and others in power. Using coronavirus as a chance to grab even more power. This is how we're going to connect. And let me get back to where I was. Oh, I wanted to tell you about this guy too. So I found this video, which I will also include at the bottom of this video that I'm making right now. And he was talking, it's titled, "There's More Disinfo Now Than Ever Seen." And he's talking about that. And you can see he's a Christian, and he is a Trump supporter, and you can see here he's in this kind of shed-like environment. His pistol is back there because he's ready for Armageddon. He actually calls it end times, but he's taken his support away too. If you go here to 11:25. I will put the link below this video. If you go to 11 minutes, 25 seconds, you will see where he tells you that Trump and QAnon are bullshit. They are lying to you. And so he's taking his support away from Trump too. This is why we need to start listening to these people and find our common ground and connect with them. This is how we're going to take the timeline to the revolution and down to the dawning of the age of Aquarius and down the timeline of love and peace and community and sharing and cooperation and Christ consciousness and consciousness expansion and freedom and self-actualization, all the things we really truly want. They want those things too. They're just human beings. They want it just like we want it. And now they're waking up. They're waking up. Now it's time for us to wake up too. Okay? So let's go back to, I want to go back now to what I was saying about the integral level of consciousness expansion. So, you no longer think in black and white. Rather, your consciousness can think in the whole spectrum of color. You are able to integrate light and shadow to empower yourself. Where light and shadow meet, a rainbow is formed. You are able to expand your consciousness to hold an entire spectrum of color. That's why I want you guys to go watch my video, Valuing Your Life Energy. It explains what currency really is. Okay, again, if I can remember to, I'll put it above or I'll include it at the end of the video. It's definitely in the links below where I showed you, in the comments or in the description box. It's called Valuing Your Life Energy. Also, your inner strength comes from being fluid and flexible. You are resilient and resourceful. This is how you know you have shifted up to tier 2, integral level of consciousness. You can step outside of your comfort zone. You are less rigid and less brittle. You can remain calm in the face of uncertainty, and you do not freak out. A lot of people on my channel, you know, I told you that. I said, when I start talking more authentically and more honestly, I'm going to lose subscribers. And sure enough, I had a huge plunge. As soon as I started being honest and authentic and telling the truth about what's coming, I had a huge plunge in my subscriptions. But those are the people who are freaking out. They are the people who are going to go down the timeline of fear. Okay. And, but fortunately, I got a lot of people who are sticking it out with me, and that's exciting. So another way you know if you've moved into the tier 2 level of consciousness that is integral is that you are open and curious. You're fascinated by other people, by the world, and by the nature of reality. Okay? You don't assume you know everything. You're curious, you're open, you're like fascinating. Remember how Spock always used to say, fascinating. Yeah, it's like being more like Spock. It's like being at the summit of a mountain, being able to look out over the landscape and see everything around you without moralizing or judging, but rather feeling compassion. I mean, I was excited. I was so excited when I, you know, found these 2 channels. I'm not saying I agree with everything they say. I don't agree with everything they're saying, because I think they're getting ready for the Armageddon. And I have said in my other videos that we're moving toward the awakening. And my video is going into blur. So let's see, maybe I'll just get out of that and go back over here. So yeah, I was just getting really curious to see, because I told you, you know, in the charts, I knew that Donald Trump was going to be losing support, and that there would be more conflict in his reality because of Saturn and Mars moving into a 7th house. And so I started looking and getting really curious, and I started finding these things, you know, like, you've got to watch this guy, and especially go to 11 minutes and 25 seconds, or this other guy, Christopher Green of AMTV. Listen to what he says. You don't have to agree with anything. That's how you know you're at the tier 2 integral level of consciousness, is because you can listen without freaking out or going into judgment. Just stay curious, just listen and say, well, you know, my values don't necessarily line up with his. For example, I don't think that we're moving into the Armageddon. I do believe that we are in the moment of, We have flowering trees in the blue sky. There are no airplanes. It's just a perfectly blue sky in 360 degrees. Isn't that incredible? And there's that beautiful tree, flowering tree in the backyard, and the grass is turning green. It's kind of hard to control the light here. I can hear the birds. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, so peaceful now. Clean air to breathe. It's quiet, it's peaceful. Everybody's happy. I like it. Okay, so we'll go back inside now. I was just hearing the morning doves too. I love the sound of the morning doves. You get to see messy apartment. Always so busy, trying to get stuff done all the time. Okay, so much to talk about, and don't even know where to begin. It's like it's a web. I know it's, so for some reason it drives some people crazy, you know, this kind of bopping around on the web, but actually that is the integral, that is another trait of the integral level of consciousness, is that you don't think in linear black and white. You think in a web, you know, and that's why the internet is actually the brain, the neural network brain of the Earth, planet Earth. We are the neural networks, and the internet is the web of neural networks. So we are actually the brain, the consciousness of planet Earth, and that's why you know, we call the internet the web, and it's like we have hyperlinks and stuff like that because the web isn't linear. It's web-like, you know. So you can drill down and then out and out, you know, 360 degrees, you know, it goes in all directions. Again, that's why you need to watch my video titled Valuing Your Life Energy. It goes into more in-depth explanation of all of that. So let's get back and finish this. Okay. So again, how do you know if you have moved into the tier 2 integral level of consciousness? Because, like I said, it's like being at the summit of a mountain, being able to look out over the landscape and see everything around you without moralizing or judging, but rather feeling compassion. Oh, I think it was down here too, that you are curious, or maybe that was a little bit higher, about being curious. Yeah, you're open and curious, fascinated by other people, the world, and the nature of reality. That's why I was going around and I was looking, because I also knew that Donald Trump was going to start losing his support. And so I started looking around for people who were Trump supporters. And I'm starting to find a lot of people out there who are Trump supporters who are turning against him, not just because they see that he's a farce, that he's a shill, he's authoritarian, he's going to take their freedom away. And we all know that. That's why we, you know, want something different. And now we can join with them, you know, and stop judging each other. We can connect on the level with which we have commonality for the greater good. Okay, we can put our differences aside and work toward the greater good. It's worth it, believe me. So again, it's like being at the summit of a mountain, being able to look out over the landscape and see everything around you without moralizing or judging, but rather feeling compassion. And though you have a perception of reality, you begin to realize that the human perception of reality is actually an illusion. And thus you are able to let go of attachment to that perception. You're able to let go of attachment to that illusion. You're able to let go of your polarity. You're able to let go of your judgments. You're able to let go of fear and separation. and you're able to let go of the story, the illusion, the narrative, and see you will live in a reality of energy. So after you do that, then you see that the true reality is energetic, and you begin to live more in the perception of energetic reality. You value freedom, love, and self-empowerment over fear and enslavement, and the illusory desire for safety. It's an illusion, okay? Because freedom is an internal state of being. It's an internal locus of control, whereas the desire for safety is based on an external locus of control, and it is an illusion. And people are going to give up their freedom and give it up to the authoritarian government, which this will become if we don't fight for our freedom, if we don't line up for this revolution, you know. This is the revolution. We've crossed the threshold. It's the revolution. It's the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And we get to choose which timeline we're going to create because we have free will. So you see yourself as integrated with your environment, realizing that without the environment, you cannot exist. And this leads to the realization that you and your external environment are one. This realization leads to compassion and connection rather than judgment and disconnection. Understanding that you are your environment, you also realize that to be fully free, empowered, and self-actualized requires that all beings be free, empowered, and have the opportunity for self-actualization. So rather than polarize, you synthesize, you integrate. That is the meaning of the integral level of consciousness. You see, when you move up to tier 2, integral level of consciousness, you see how all things are connected and woven together in a web. And this seeing allows you to feel compassion because you realize that the outer is actually inside of you, not outside of you. You are able to integrate the inner and the outer and see that they are not separate. They are one. So seeing this truth allows you to let go of judgment. And this empowers you to change the outer external reality by changing the internal reality. Because the external is simply a reflection of your internal reality. And by flooding your heart with love, empathy, and compassion, you project the energy vibration of love and send it through the web. Okay? So that's how you know that you have moved up to tier 2 and evolved your consciousness to the integral level of consciousness. And then you can just go right back to the beginning. After you've gone through that whole list, you go back to the beginning and work on that internal locus of control versus external locus of control, and work on taking personal responsibility rather than blaming externals and pointing fingers. That doesn't mean you can't observe. You know, we can observe that the monetary system is set up in a way to enslave people. And we have a value judgment about that, which is our internal locus of control, which says, I value freedom, I value democracy, I value opportunity for everyone, you know, a true level playing field, not a fake level playing field. These can be things that we value, and we can see that they're not existing out there. And so then we can move toward creating them. We get busy creating something new instead of just sitting around blaming, pointing fingers, wasting energy, complaining all the time, and shoulding on other people. So let's stop all the shoulding on other people. Okay, let's stop judging other people. Let's start connecting with them, finding where we connect, okay? I don't even really like the term the wealth and power elite because it still creates this idea of separation. It's just that, you know, you have to use the language of a certain level of consciousness that you're speaking to. So when you're speaking to people in tier 1 level of consciousness, you have to use the language of that level of consciousness, because if you don't use that language, they won't understand what you're saying. Oh, there I go out of focus again. So let me pull that Tier 2. Okay, yeah. So if you want people to understand, if people are green or orange or blue or red or purple, if they're way down here, survival or purple or red or blue, they might not be able to hear you if you're at green, but the people at orange, they can hear you. That's where the libertarians are right now. The libertarians are at orange, and the you know, and they may be at blue as well, because they're in that religious doctrine that talks about the, see, it does talk about the apocalypse, but apocalypse is an awakening. That's what the word apocalypse means. It means the awakening. And at some point, I'm actually going to do a video on the revelations of St. John, or sometimes called the Apocalypse of St. John, the Awakening of St. John. It's a prophecy, because the thing about it is that whether, you know, it doesn't matter what, if you're part of this established religion, if you believe that Christ walked the earth, or Jesus walked the earth, you know, and that he brought the Christ spirit to the earth. It doesn't matter, but if you are, because you can use a different language, you don't have to use that language, you know, you can use a different language. But since I'm an astrologer, astrology is a divination tool. I do believe in divination. Prophecy is a form of divination. And so I want to show you how you can look at the language of the revelations of St. John, the prophecy, and see it as a form of divination, and not be frightened by it, because the fact is that apocalypse simply means awakening. You can awaken immediately, like that. You don't need to go through an Armageddon. Some people do. Some people do need an Armageddon. But the thing is, I told you before that it's like, how to explain this? I told you about the bubbles, the dimensional realities. So you can already be moving down, creating this new timeline that has its own dimensional reality, but you can still see the people in the other dimensional reality. You can see them, you can hear them, you can interact with them, but their energy field of fear and hatred and slavery and needing Armageddon to you know, to survive or to awaken, you don't have to be in that dimensional reality. So the two dimensions can be side by side. They can see each other, they can hear each other, they can talk to each other, but they don't, like, they can be in their Armageddon and you can be living in peace. It's actually true. No matter where there is war in the world, there is always some place where people are living in peace and harmony. And that's because they live in a separate dimensional reality, even though they can see that other dimensional reality. So, so they may feel they need Armageddon in order to awaken, but we don't need Armageddon in order to awaken. We can awaken like that. And we have the choice to do so and to create that timeline. And so the more of us can do that, the more our energy will, and our reality and our dimensional reality creating that time will have more and more energetic power, and it can actually transform and raise the level of consciousness and the vibrational level of other people. That's why we need to reach out to them and connect with them. Okay, so let me just really quickly check to make sure I covered everything. So we talked about spiral dynamics again, how you know that you're at the tier 2 integral level of consciousness. And I showed you, I want to make sure that I have covered all of the videos I want you to see. So I mentioned Christopher Green of AMTV. He is a libertarian, and I'm just saying I don't agree with everything he says. I'm not a libertarian. I'm a social anarchist. But there's many things he's saying that I actually do agree with, because he is talking, he's saying, you know, Trump is a shill, you know, and he also, I heard him in another video say that the QAnon is a big fat lie. So these Trumpers are starting to wake up. So this is the time to reach out to them, to listen to what they're saying, see where we can connect with them, and start, as a working class, start working together to create this revolution. And so he would totally agree with this. I mean, we agree with this. He agrees with this. He's turning against Trump and QAnon because he sees that they are lying to him. And same with this other guy over here. Where was he? There's more disinfo now than ever seen. He's ready for the apocalypse, and he has given up on Trump and QAnon. He knows that they are lying to him. So these people are starting to turn away from Trump. This is super exciting because now there's an opportunity for all of us to come together and create this new timeline, create this revolution. Yes, I know there will be some pockets of violence, but that doesn't have to be true, okay? So don't be afraid of the word revolution, because you can have a peaceful revolution. Like think about Martin Luther of 500 years ago when he nailed his theses to the church door in protest. And that was the beginning of the Reformation. I've talked many, many, many times about how the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn is the closest to what happened 500 years ago and points directly to Martin Luther King's protest and the Reformation. So that's super exciting. We are living in those times right now. So we need to be like Martin Luther, and we need to be like Martin Luther King Jr., who helped lead a nonviolent revolution. And we need to be like Gandhi, who helped lead a nonviolent revolution. And like Henry David Thoreau, and all these other incredibly brilliant spiritual people who came to this earth and were ahead of their time to lead humanity into this nonviolent revolution. They may not be here now, but their energy lives on, and it's reincarnated in us. So let's see, what else do we need to look at, if anything else? I think that might be enough for now. Oh wait, there's one more thing. I'm actually going to make a video on this. Trump is making Bernie Sanders look good. I want to find some more information, but yeah, I'm going to actually do a full video on that, and it will be called Trump is Now a Socialist, which I think is really funny. And we have to spread this meme, okay? We have to do everything in our power to spread this meme. Trump is now a socialist. And we have to do this because he will try to use the word socialist against the Democratic candidate, And I've said many, many times, it's actually not going to matter who wins the election, and I still hold by that, because the alignments of the revolution come on Inauguration Day, January 20th, 2021. So that means that the revolution is coming. It's getting activated on that day. So it actually doesn't matter who wins the election, because it doesn't matter if it's Biden or Trump, or if it's Bernie. I don't know what that will look like, but we'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, whoever wins, the revolution is coming, okay? The alignments are there. I've showed them to you. I'll show them to you again. The revolution is absolutely coming. We have already started. We have already crossed the threshold toward the revolution and the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and the awakening and the new timeline that we're going to create of love and peace and harmony and cooperation and consciousness expansion and Christ consciousness, and a new world where we live in harmony with the environment, and we treat other species with respect, and we see ourselves interconnected and integrated with the environment and with all of humanity, and people can actually self-actualize, and it's a wonderful, wonderful vision, and we can create it. We absolutely can. So I'm going to stop there, and of course, I will look forward to your comments, and I will continue to bring this information to you. And I guess I wanted to say one more thing about Trump being a socialist now, is that, he passed the $2 trillion stimulus package bill, and they're looking at passing even more multi-trillion dollar stimulus package bills. That's socialism. Trump is a socialist now. Okay. So instead of pretending that they're not socialists, let's just call it what it is. That's socialism. And because now that we can see that Trump is actually a socialist, and we can, you know, I'm sure we'd rather have Bernie than Trump, but regardless, he won't be able to use that as a bad name against the Democratic candidate, because he is a socialist now. And so we got to spread that meme and show everybody, you know, Trump is a socialist now. He passed the largest, you know, just socialist package in the history of the United States. Like it was even more historic than FDR, the amount of money put out there. Okay, so that's the new meme. Trump is a socialist now, and I'm going to do another video on that, but and try to explain more and more and more why we need to spread this meme as much as possible. Okay, so all right, so that's it for today, and as always, please subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for notifications, like this video, share with friends and family on social media, and leave your comments below. And again, I hope that you were able to see that little mini tutorial on how to leave a comment below with the links, because that way it's easier to have that information available to everyone, so that they can learn from it too. And it helps me to organize and prioritize my workload. And I think that's it for today. And again, if you want to take the astrology workshop, it starts on April 4th. It is self-paced, so you can access the material for virtually forever as long as the website exists. But the group sessions, those will be done once a week. So, and I'm working to make sure that everybody is able to get into at least one group session every week. But once those pass, then that expires. That's why I want you to try to get into this workshop this week, so we can start on April 4th and I can get people into these group sessions. Okay. All right. So that's it for today. And I love you all. And I will see you again next time.